the missing piece that a lot of founders don't allocate enough time towards is about getting feedback and speaking to prospects, not just for the sake of, I want to sell this prospect to convert and be a paying customer and use my product, but what is your true pain point? Does my product today solve your pain point? If not, what do myself and the founding team need to change so the product gets to that point so you will say yes? And then how will that impact my roadmap?
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Liberty Ventures podcast. I'm Alexander McCobin, founder and CEO of Liberty Ventures, where we're building the ecosystem of values-aligned business leaders, investors, executives, and entrepreneurs who are committed to a free and prosperous future and helping you scale your business to scale your impact. And I'm just so excited to be talking today with David Yakobovitch from DataPower Ventures. Now, David, I'm going to let you share your background in a moment, but you've been involved in venture for a while now. You've been in a product lead, you've been in the startup world, and bring all that to bear, really focusing on early stage data economy startups. And I just so appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom and experience with the rest of the Liberty Ventures community today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Alexander.
So let's actually start just with your story. What has led to not only what you're doing right now, but who you are and what drives you to do venture work?
It's a great question, and I think for myself, by way of background, I built a career that's been a long, winding journey around data products. It's been focusing early on around statistics and information systems at large financial companies, which then led me on a journey to different tech startups. So I had the opportunity to be a tech operator at 5 different startups, all from the early through growth stages. And at all these companies, I was working on reporting products and data intelligence and a suite of analytics. And over time, that evolved into end to end data science products and pipelines and even what is life after reporting, which could be these ML powered and now AI powered features. And my career was a woven web between all these different startups with that common theme of data. And along that journey led me to start making my own direct investments as an angel, building out my own syndicate, turning into a fund, and scaling up the venture ecosystem. I've now been in New York City for over 10 years and been focusing in the venture space for over 4 years, both as an angel, a syndicate lead, and now a fund manager.
So what attracted you to the data side of things in the beginning? Because that's critical to every business nowadays, but I don't think nearly enough people pay attention to that, or they kind of just see that as something off to the side of what they do, even though it's core to so many startups now.
What I like to think about data is about maybe 15 years ago, there was this thesis that a lot of entrepreneurs had, which was that every company was to become a software powered company using APIs, using SDKs, building out an entire tech stack to power business model innovation. And then a little bit after 2010 was the rise of big data. This is finally the point of where databases could be distributed on multi node architecture. It was the early advent of cloud services where you could host on multi zone and regions different um, data systems from the database to the actual dashboarding and business intelligence. And that, of course, has evolved into what's known today as the data science industry, even the modern data stack, including, of course, the most recent advent in the last couple years of the generative AI and large language model space. For me, I think it's a natural progression, going from being a kid who focused on mathematics and statistics to doing those early hackathons in college and building and prototyping products to getting deeper involved in the trenches at different startups. It's just been a common thread about working, manipulating, and extracting insights from data. And of course, today, as many of us would know, the common phrase "data is the new oil" couldn't be more than true, as we're seeing the rise of more generative AI startups and companies that are defining their product stack not only as software companies, but data first companies or even AI first companies.
Okay, so anyone who might overlook the importance of data to begin with, what would you say to them to start really using their data more effectively or to tap into data to help in building up their companies?
So when I think about companies, it's about the data maturity life cycle. And there's probably a few different stages we could think about for companies, whether you're a startup or a large organization that's doing digital transformation. The earliest stage is the actual foundation layer of gathering, organizing, and storing your data. That means creating databases, having pipelines where you could ingest different data feeds, store, collect all the data to be available for a future time when you're going to perform some sort of analysis, insight, or prediction. Step two for the data maturity curve is the actual cleansing, validation, massaging of the data so it's in a good state to extract insights. This can mean as simple as converting a date time column to be readable by a machine. This can mean removing spelling errors or performing regular expressions so that the data is in a very standardized format. Step three would actually be let's create insights and these analytics, which are typically done through what's known as reporting or formerly business intelligence, which is now this data intelligence layer of performing both static insights, which could be a daily report that's shared to executives, or even real time reports that then include pipelines and the movement of data to have on the minute, on the hour analysis to impact business decisions. It's that stage three where most companies are still kind of stuck, frankly, in around 2024. But we've seen a lot of evolution in creating what's known as these like insight columns, where you make a prediction. Perhaps a budget for a marketing company is between a range of a lower bound and an upper bound. Well, that's stage four. That's performing some initial prediction, data science, or confidence intervals to claim um, once you've done everything, how to manage your business with those insights. A lot of companies have moved very much into that direction once they've successfully set up those first three stages of the data maturity curve. And the final, or like becoming a very data mature organization, is about then bringing this into every element of your business. That means specifically not only having these insights that are powered by different data models, but driving it across all your different products. And that's what we've started to see with this rise of generative AI products, where let's say an e-commerce company can start to have real-time machine learning processes being on the front end for consumers when they're considering purchasing a product or abandoning a cart or chatting with a customer rep. That could be either a human agent or a digital or like AI agent. And then further on the back end, supporting those processes in real time to create this virtuous cycle of being a data first or AI first company. So I think those are the levels that companies are building towards. Most companies are still in stage three, but I think this recent advance of generative AI systems is pushing companies a lot quicker into stage four and five, or even skipping stage one to three altogether and saying we want generative AI now, and that creates sometimes good things, of course, with new product innovation, and sometimes there's shortcuts that can create issues as we see products that launch that hit the waves in the market where they might not be as appropriate because they made errors or mistakes because the models weren't trained and attuned to a variety of data.
I mean, like with everything else in building a company, I think even with data as well, it's important to walk before you run. And sure, we want to run as quickly as possible, but you have to have those foundational building blocks in place in order to get to that point.
Yeah, and this is what we're seeing today with generative AI models. So some companies that I've spoken to have said like let's just build a model today. And I think there are two schools of thoughts. School of thought number one is I don't need my own proprietary data. I can use a general purpose model to perform some sort of action, and I think that will get you to a certain point true, right? If you're doing a general customer service request, a general dashboard that you're building, but once you have custom metrics, very bespoke information that's unique to your business as compared to other industries, often the models as of today in early 2024 have not reached the human level parity. So it requires what we're calling this human in the loop intervention, or like humans and machines working together, where instead of, say, a human may have manually before done 7 tickets for customer service on like a e-commerce website, maybe the chatbot will do 7 of those tickets, and the human will review them and verify them to speed up the process and ensure we get better together, human and machine processing. So that's school of thought number one, right? Go machine first without your proprietary data. Um, School of thought two is let's create fine tuned models. Let's build systems where once all the data is coming into the chatbots on our website or through other websites before that have done these systems, can we create a better model that's custom? So, if I had an e commerce website that's specialized in selling luxury handbags, it'd be great to custom or fine tune to our data, and then that could create overall better results. So, these are the kind of two school of thoughts that are going around today in the industry.
And do you have a preference for one of those schools of thoughts over the other?
It's still early to tell which one's going to win out, so to speak, in the generative AI rise that we're seeing in this new wave of AI first applications. Uh, I think some of it is going to, at the moment, come down to cost. So going for general purpose models is more affordable for companies than performing large, fine-tuned model training, which can often require very specialized chips, like, for example, NVIDIA's H100s, which as of the time of this recording, are in short supply and require a large amount of capital to become an actual inventory business to own these chips to perform all that analysis. Depending on your use case, it may or may not be to your benefit to buy the chips. It might be maybe you want to build your own data center, maybe you want to lease or use reserved data credits on one of the cloud providers. So it really depends on what you're trying to build and what levers you need to manage for your cost drivers.
Fair enough. Now, let's talk about your startup experience because a lot of people listening are starting their own businesses right now, and maybe in the very beginning phase, maybe they're a little bit down the road, but you've been through this a number of times already. If you were to give advice to your younger self, or even just maybe what is the most common advice that you're giving to founders when you're talking with them nowadays that you'd be willing to share here?
When I speak to different founders and I see them successfully growing their business, and success is measured by different metrics. So, if I was to ask a founder, what's success to you? Uh, a first founder might say success is raising a pre seed or a seed round. Another founder might say it's hitting a certain amount of revenue, like 1 million recurring revenue a year. A third founder might say it's about the number of users. A fourth founder might talk about the lifetime value to CAC ratio being at a certain customer acquisition cost. And even the fifth founder might talk about overall like stickiness of the product, like user engagement in a certain amount of time or interactions per day, per week, per month. So while it will vary from founder to founder, the key, I think, in successful founders is building and shipping product frequently. So not necessarily doing like one build that you ship every year, perhaps breaking that down into more micro features that are being launched every day, every week, every month to ensure you're building incremental updates to your product. Uh, Second, I think it's important that the founding team is consistently updating their sales process. Initially, as an early stage company, your sales process will be founder led sales. Though, in addition to that, there could be different channel partnerships that you can expand with to support distribution of your product. If it's a SaaS product on marketplaces, if it's a services product through VARs, OEMs, and other channel partners. I think beyond those two, the missing piece that a lot of founders don't allocate enough time towards is about getting feedback and having what's known as design partners and speaking to prospects, not just for the sake of, I want to sell this prospect to convert and be a paying customer and use my product, but what is your true pain point? Does my product today solve your pain point? If not, What do myself and the founding team need to change so the product gets to that point? So you will say, yes, I'd like to use or purchase your product. Um, and then how will that impact my roadmap? One of those, this hits really at home for me because a couple of the startups I was at, we had what's known as a customer advisory board, where our top customers every month would tell us about new features they'd like to be shipped for developer experience and how that would impact the business, the actual profit and loss centers. Those were very important drivers for the companies that were our clients. So that was one source of information. I think founders that are looking through these three things of building and shipping product quickly, updating and changing the sales cycle flow, and constantly listening to feedback, that will help you be more likely to hit early traction and early growth, to accelerate to what could be known as like a Series A or product market fit.
So that was a great recap there. And I'm really intrigued by this idea of a customer advisory board. How did you actually set that up? Because feedback is critical and it's typically one on one feedback you get from customers. But was there something more structured to the customer advisory board? How did you leverage that, or how might another startup actually create something like that?
There's a few ways you could think about customer advisory boards. So first, you could always do these like one-on-ones, and this is something that's a common practice at Google, which is these empathy sessions where you're listening in to a customer talking about what's working well and what's not working well with your product. You could bring in a variety of stakeholders from your team, perhaps an engineer, perhaps a founder, perhaps a business person, right? You bring in a variety of stakeholders and you're just listening for without even giving any feedback to the customer, open-ended questions about how they're using your platform or tools, and what the opportunity is to better use or improve that. Second, beyond that, the challenge is this doesn't scale very well when you have a lot of customers or users. So if for enterprise B2B SaaS, this could scale well, right? If you have a few customers for each hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of your revenue, one-on-ones is the way to go. You want this white glove, high touch approach. But in general, getting customer feedback is more effective with a low touch or no touch approach, with like surveys, providing survey design where you get to show different mock updates for a product, getting that feedback perhaps over emails or over videos like posting on Loom, and then showcasing to active customers what they think about these proposed changes. The second part is also having frequent cadences with your customers to see about their unmet needs. One of the big gaps and a lot of SaaS product founders don't put enough attention to is expanding current accounts. It's often seen in classic Silicon Valley of like, let's land new logos and use our lighthouse and key accounts and just keep expanding logos, like land new logos. But once we landed the customer, we're done with them. Like, let's manage them, let's manage this process, let's ensure they stay with us. But the conversation isn't often about how do I grow this account? If an account is making you $100,000 a year, well, rather than maybe landing three new accounts, each for 100,000, is it possible to turn this account into a $500,000 account? That might be a more effective use of the founder's time to get into different divisions of a company to expand product adoption and unification among the entire platform and tooling. So I think that's one consideration to be put in place. Um, Beyond that, it's just important to have frequent dialogue, and this is, I think, is more like a sales led issue that we see in the industry, and part of it's about like incentive misalignment. You often see that when it comes to revenue drivers, and we think about like go to market sales motions for startups, account executives and SDRs are pretty much focused on just like let's get the sale, let's move on to that for our next quota, our next quarter, to hit our OTE. But customer success often doesn't have that opportunity to support those accounts and provide those expansions on net dollar retention. So, what I'm hinting at here is if we provide better alignment on both the customer success and the sales areas of a startup, this could perhaps help unlock new value that founders may have not known existed with core accounts. And perhaps those core accounts that are part of your customer advisory board, these champions, these large spenders who are super users of the product, they might even make recommendations to other enterprises or other consumers to help you grow your business. So in fact, you get basically a free sales force that's advocating for you, and that's creating more adoption for your product in the end.
Invaluable advice and suggestions there. Really, thank you. Now, for the last part of this, let's talk about your experience in venture. And I'd love to actually better understand why you shifted over to focusing on venture after being a part of so many startups.
Yeah, this is a great question that I get from a lot of founders when I'm doing founder-led coaching and discovery sessions of, why am I not building my own startup now? Why did I go into the venture space? And for me, it was about having an outsized impact, having more at bats to be able to coach more founders and support them in the success of their businesses. Having been in multiple startups, once I was already at my third one, I wanted to start doing that coaching. At that point, I became an EIR. I was at different accelerators, mentoring, meeting different founders, and supporting them, both from like a time allocation perspective, but then also from capital, performing angel investment checks. I realized that coming as originally a first generation student in the United States with my family, my pockets were only so deep. So I can only have so much impact with my capital. It was more effective with time. And that led me towards the path of expanding my community in New York City, in San Francisco, and Seattle to bring different colleagues from the startups I worked for together to invest in early ventures and to support them to grow. Over time, that became a network of other founders and operators and developers and investors through all these tier one cities in the States, which became my early syndicate, then the fund, and everything that I'm doing today, which is spending my time at DataPower, investing in the data economy, looking for the next great founders, building tooling and business model innovation. Not only in the States, I'm looking into Europe and South America and other regions as well. But I think that kind of led my intellectual drive to support and coach more founders than being focused only on one company. And so that got me really excited to grow my journey in venture. And today that continues to expand. Outside of Data Power, I support as a venture partner in the ecosystem for other funds, helping them with early stage investments and growth investments as well. So we're working through a lot of great opportunities. And I think 2024 is definitely shaping up to be a year that a lot of people are talking about all things data and AI.
So there's so many similarities between your journey and what we're on at Liberty Ventures as well, because I also love working with so many incredible founders who are building potentially society changing products and services and businesses and get to work and support them in that endeavor. And we started out the same way. It's a syndicate to begin with an eye towards raising a fund in the future, but building up those relationships and realizing it is all about having those strong relationships in order to be able to not only go and raise a fund, but to work with those great founders and provide them with the support and connections that they need in order to grow. So I'm curious about how you went from building up the syndicate to working with an actual fund. What was that like for you, making that leap? Because it is a big leap to do that.
Yeah, I think for me, the process was making sure that I built out standard operating procedures and systems for making investments into startups at the institutional level. That meant setting up everything from back office to front office that would systematize inbound for startups, understanding how to diligence founders. Providing them the right feedback, providing them introductions to other venture capitalists in the ecosystem, the process to make investments, and then support with platform, even post investment, and as they grow to other advisors and investors throughout the venture ecosystem. So it's really, I think, when you build anything, building a startup, building a syndicate or a fund, you build it as you need it. Right. And I think over time, then what will happen is, oh, I have the need to build platform. Okay. Well, founders, what is it that you're looking for? Oh, you're looking for more um, AWS credits or GCP credits to build on the cloud. I wonder if I could do a partnership with cloud providers like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud to give preferred pricing or credits for my founders so they can build and scale faster. Oh, now you're looking for other issues, like can you get preferred pricing on incorporation if you're a future founder and you're just getting set up? I wonder if there's different platforms out there I could partner with, like Deal and others like that. So I think it's very much an as-needed basis, growing and scaling out. The every element of your syndicate into a fund, and truly it's a relationship business. It takes time. I think that was something that early on I had to learn the patience of that. I think the challenge is what happened during the pandemic was was a false signal for a lot of investors who were angel investing and building syndicates and funds. It was that I could invest in a pre-seed company on day one, and then on day 90, I would invest in the seed, and on day 270, I would invest in the A. We saw several companies who did this, like Hopin and others, and most of these companies have completely crashed and burned and have lost 80 to 98% of their value or completely gone bankrupt. Other companies like Fridge No More and others, we can see a lot in the space. So the challenge is the vintages became really complex for investors who were building out their portfolio and seeing what those at bats look like. So it takes more time to mature that portfolio and see which companies are surviving and thriving. And so for someone like myself, right, I'm now a little bit over 4 years in the space. I'm just now seeing a lot of those graduations from pre-seed and seed to seed extension and A. And by merit of that success and support I'm providing to founders and investors, we've continued to grow the network. It's really exciting and can't hurt that NVIDIA is doing really well this year. The data economy is growing, especially with AI applications. So it's an exciting time to build and invest.
Now, last big question from me for you is when you look at founders and you consider which companies to invest in, what are some of the key things that you're looking for? Everyone knows you look at the founding team, you look at the opportunity for them, but is there anything that you particularly look for that you think is important for other investors to think about and for other founders to be considering as they're building their startups?
I think some other somewhat overlooked factors for founders that are quite critical is what is the opportunity they're going after from a market sizing perspective. Um, I've seen some pitch decks that completely miss the mark, right? Someone will say, I'm going after an unlimited TAM. I'm going after a $1 trillion opportunity. On the other end, there could be some founders actually say, I'm going after a $5 million TAM. So it's, well, if you're doing that, and again, that could be a great impact startup, but is it a venture scalable startup? Should you be raising venture capital? That's something to consider. Second, for when founders are raising money, a great question to ask, and if you're a founder listening, is why are you actually raising venture capital? Are you looking to truly build and you understand the complexities and nuances of building potentially a unicorn startup and the processes? Are you taking on the mission that you're accepting that in 2, 3, or 5 years, you're going to have 400 people working for you? Is that the world you want to build? Are you up to working potentially 60, 70-hour work weeks, building a venture that there's going to be a lot of sweat equity to get it to that next level? In addition, it's important to understand that our founders actually looking for feedback. So when you're an investor and you're talking to founders, I think it's important to give frank feedback to share about, my opinion or others and what I think works or doesn't. I can miss the mark a lot of times. I don't always have the right answers, but I try to take my opinions and ground them in the data and the facts and the truth. And then I want to hear from founders. What's your perspective on what I shared? Founders who often don't have perspective or don't take the feedback may not actually be as successful in the fundraising process. We'll see many founders who treat the fundraising process only as a sales process, not actually as a relationship and a co-creation process on building your venture in the ecosystem. So for founders who are listening, I encourage you that every relationship is so powerful. It can provide fantastic introductions. One of our startups that we invested in, Liz O'Sullivan, she's formerly of Arthur AI. She's now at Vera AI. So we backed her in our recent round and she had some extra allocation. I connected her to a few other funds. They filled the rest of her round. Just like that, we spoke, we had a nice chat. She listened to feedback, gave some introductions. Boom, done like that. I'm not saying it's always this easy, but I'm encouraging as founders that you're building for the long-term value of the ecosystem. So I encourage you to expand these relationships, find the opportunity to collaborate, whether you're working with angels, syndicate leads, fund managers, we're all in the ecosystem together, right? We all want to build venture class. We all want to build startups that scale. So let's find ways to collaborate and build, for the data economy and the overall startup ecosystem.
David, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. And for anyone listening who may want to get in touch with you, or they want to help you out in some way, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, awesome. First, Alexander, thank you so much for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Founders, investors, anyone who wants to reach out, developers, operators, execs, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at datapower.vc or David at datapower.vc. Open networker, happy to take cold pitches, happy to learn more. So thanks so much for having me.
Really, thank you not only for being on the podcast, but for everything that you're doing. This is a really exciting space, and you're doing some amazing work in it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexander.